Hey, Kristin, how you doing today?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. It's great to be speaking with you. Thanks a lot for taking some time out.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, first, I'll ask you, I know you got a show coming up at the Skyway Theater here in Minneapolis, and you're playing with Garbage. That has to be a pretty cool feeling to be opening for those guys with this new album.
Yeah. I don't think I could have, designed a better pairing or first real tour if I, was paid to do that sort of thing. It's pretty nostalgic for me as well because Garbage was the first concert I saw back in the mid-'90s. So it's strangely kismet, I suppose, that when I saw them in San Jose, that was kind of the first light bulb moment of, oh, I want to do this.
Yeah, that is awesome that it's turned out that way. Do you think maybe Shirley Manson might be sharing the stage with you, or will we see some kind of collaboration maybe?
I'm sure I will bug her incessantly about doing something. I've seen them when they've come through in New York for the last couple of years, and they've sometimes opted to do little duets with their support band. I saw them do a cover of Because the Night with Screaming Females, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was pretty incredible. So, yeah, I'll have my list of, well, what about this? We'll see.
Well, and of course, around these parts, it seems like everyone who's coming through is doing some sort of tribute to Prince. Will we be seeing some of that from you?
Yeah, probably. We did a cover at our Brooklyn show last week, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be a regular thing. That was we had a couple of extra musicians and singers with us. But if it makes sense anywhere, it certainly would be Minneapolis. So.
Well, a lot of the listeners familiar with your work with the Dum Dum Girls over the years, but the new album, Excommunicate, I guess it's a little darker and maybe not what the listeners are used to. Was that, I guess, a kind of a conscious effort to kind of branch out and try something new?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it wasn't really like there were two fighting sides of me. It was that I, started Dum Dum Girls in 2008 when I finally learned how to play the guitar well enough to write songs. And I started recording my demos, and that basically became Dum Dum Girls very quickly. And so because each record that I put out kind of captured, just another step along my growth as a musician, I reached a certain point, I think, with my last record where I felt like I was at some kind of crossroads where either I would continue on the trajectory of music that I felt like I have been on since I started, but that doesn't necessarily fit in archetype that's very strongly associated with what Dum Dum Girls is, or I could, go left and stay sort of in Dum Dum Girls safe territory where, the music I would make would be understood as more appropriate or befitting of what Dum Dum Girls has come to mean for a lot of people. And rather than do that, which creatively is stunting for me personally, and rather than sort of force Dum Dum Girls to become this other thing, probably unsuccessfully, it just felt like it was time to kind of step off that path and reestablish myself as a solo artist that has sort of infinite room for growth and infinite directions to go. That's not necessarily associated with a specific template or sound or genre or era. That for me was important just in terms of why do I get up every morning if not to continue trying to, expand and improve as, a human, firstly, and then secondly, an artist, I guess.
Yeah, obviously it's always tough to leave a group that's been successful and try to start over and start fresh. But obviously with the new album Excommunicate out on Sub Pop, it sounds like you made the right move, not only for your career, but for yourself, as you mentioned, to kind of just try something new.
Yeah, it was just time, sometimes things don't have to necessarily fall apart or be bad, and it still is the best thing to leave them behind and move forward.
So with that being said, after a while, do you see Kristin Kontrol and Dee Dee kind of being separate careers, maybe going back to it or trying to balance that sort of thing?
Not really. I mean, I really just feel like I've always just needed a vehicle to put my music out with, and for the last 8 years, Dum Dum Girls was the appropriate vehicle for that, and it isn't anymore. And so it's not like I'm juggling songs or identities, and it's not like I'm writing stuff now that I have a canon of Dum Dum Girl songs on the back burner. I just write songs, and I need a place for them to live that makes sense for them. So in terms of whether there's future Dum Dum Girl stuff, it would definitely be more like a visiting this era of my life thing, versus like making it the focus of what I do.
Sure, yeah. And again, you're playing at the Skyway Theater here in Minneapolis on July 7th and playing with Garbage. Obviously, you mentioned that was the first show you saw. They're obviously an influence for you. And on this new album, it's kind of a bit more, I guess, electronic, if that's the right word to use. Would you say Garbage, maybe, a Gary Newman or some of these other people, are those influences for this new sound?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily have listed them specifically on a list, but I also don't really have a list. It's kind of just a free-for-all, all the things that I love. But I definitely did not want to make an album that lives so exclusively in this, like, garage or guitar world. I wanted to make a record that brought in all of my influences, and helped me, use them to put a stamp on my songwriting, which has always been like my main focus. But yeah, definitely. I mean, those are two perfect examples of, people that are to some degree associated with, the rock and roll scene, but ultimately are probably much more on the electronic side of things. And I think that there's like a healthy balance on my record of, all of the things that made it into the Dum Dum Girls sound. It's just I added a lot of other stuff in.
Awesome. Yeah, and I got to ask you, I know Excommunicate is out now, and you're pretty early into the tour here, but is there maybe another project or anything else coming up that you'd want to let us know about?
Not really. I mean, I think that my focus with Kristin Kontrol is to, get it out there with the quality being the driving force, not the quantity. So, Dum Dum Girls kind of built itself up organically over time, and then at a certain point sort of was on its own path. And with this, I'm trying to be a lot more intentional with what I do. So I'm kind of slowly working on a music video and trying to roll out the whole thing, very thought out, and just so that I have something to present beyond the live show, beyond the record, that really sort of solidifies that this is the new thing that I'm doing and that it's worth your time.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks a lot, Kristin, and looking forward to seeing you in Minneapolis here coming up with Garbage, and the new album is great, and I hope to hear some more from you in the near future.
Cool. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.